You're live.
Somebody said something about waiting for the light to go on, and I can't see a light. So, folks, we're glad to have you here. I want to call the January 3rd meeting of the City Council, Bristol, Tennessee City Council, to order. We've got a few introductions and a little bit of housekeeping at first. We've got our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Gary Lilly, with us this evening. We've got a whole group of students in the back that we want to welcome from National College under the direction of instructor Jonathan Worley. Political science students who are glad to have them here, seeing how it really works at the local level, and really appreciate you. Giving our invocation this evening, we're really proud to have Father Tim Keeney from St. Anne's Catholic Church. He's been leading his flock over there for 11 years now, and we're glad to have Father Tim with us. And giving our pledge this evening, we've got a couple young gentlemen, Josiah and Micah Carrier from Troop 108, who are going to be leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. They're under the direction of Scoutmaster Don McGregor and Wiley Webb. So, folks, let's start then by our invocation, and then I'll give you some more instructions here in a minute. Please stand.
God is love. In the desire to make us share in this love, He sent His Son into the world to come to our aid and in gentle kindness to help those who are weak, sick, and unfortunate. In His great love for all of us, Christ said that whatever you do for the least among us, you do for Him. He called those who show mercy blessed of His Father and promised them eternal life. Let us pray then for the Lord's richest blessing on those gathered here who are devoted to service to our brothers and sisters in this community. Blessed are you, Lord God of mercy, who through your Son gave us a marvelous example of charity and the great commandment of love for one another. Send down your blessing on these your servants who so generously devote themselves to the needs of this community. Let them faithfully serve you and their neighbor. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I thank the Carrier brothers, and Father Tim, thank you so much for getting us started right this evening. A couple little bits of housekeeping. Everyone's going to have the opportunities to speak on any issue that is on the agenda. We'll give you an opportunity as that agenda item comes up, and I'll call for you to do so. If there's an item that is, or something on your mind that's not on the agenda, you're going to have the opportunity here in just the next few minutes for just open comments to talk about something that's not on the agenda. So I'll kind of give you reminders as we go. Make sure at this time, turn your cell phones off if you've got them in those pockets or purses, and we'll go ahead with the roll call. Terry?
Councilwoman Dolan?
Here.
Councilwoman Fire-Robin?
Here.
Vice Mayor State?
Here.
Mayor Shoemaker?
Here.
Councilman Sandy?
Here.
Mr. Broughton, are there any agenda items, additions, or deletions?
There is one item that'll be included that wasn't on the printed agenda under presentations, and that'll be a presentation on the 2011 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. So that'll be the second item, and Mr. Richard Lennon is in attendance, and we'll call him up at that time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Excuse me. We'll start right on then with our first item on the agenda is presentation this evening by Leah Ross of Bristol Rhythm and Roots Reunion. Ms. Ross, if you'll come up. And
thank you, David. You know, each year I come and give an update on our past festival, and in September we were a little late getting numbers and then getting on the agenda. But I did want to address the council tonight and tell you how we think we've finished up and where we're headed. We feel like our 11th annual festival was a huge success based on our ticket sales, our volunteers, our artists, our vendors, our city workers, and everyone else involved in putting on the event. We have concluded that our numbers for this past year was 45,000, which is about the very same thing that we had the year before. We think this is a huge accomplishment considering the down economy. We believe our low ticket prices are a big factor in that. Also, our marketing plan and our past attendees helped to make this happen. We hear every year from folks that this is my first time coming to the festival, but I'll never miss another one. So if that continues, we think that never will change. Some positive changes that happened this year with the festival, that we did some things different. One of the things was moving our Children's Day event from downtown to Cumberland Square Park, and we really toyed with that idea for a couple years, and we did not know whether that would work or not, because, you know, when we were spread out with the festival when we first started, people liked it downtown, so we moved it downtown. But the response that we got from the parents who brought kids, we incorporated the chili cook-off with it this year. Everyone seemed to say, they came back and said, that's the best thing that we had done in a long time. It really added to that festival, and it lent itself to that Children's Day event. One of the things, other things that we will change in 2012, though, that we didn't I guess we didn't, you know, sometimes you don't think through things, but it's from 9 to 1 o'clock. Well, our road race starts at 8 o'clock, so it's finishing up around 9 o'clock, so there was a lot of traffic trying to get in there, so we will change that from 9 to 10 o'clock next year, and we think that'll help with that. Being able to finally move that Piedmont stage back from where it was close to the library really helped. When we look at some of the crowds and the pictures that we've gotten back from VI, from the crowds, I don't know where we would have put them if we hadn't moved that back. They were still all the way back to State Street, but it really helped. And then adding that additional outdoor stage at CJ's really helped too, and it became a very popular. We also worried about that with people know it's back there, but the people that we had on the stage, people found them because they wanted it. You know, we are very fortunate that our sponsorship still remains to be strong. We did lose a couple last year because of hard economic times, but all in all, we added 22 new sponsors to our list last year, and we think that speaks very loudly of how our community has decided to own that festival and become a part of it. We also received a grant from the Tennessee Arts Commission to develop a social media plan for the organization, and our analytics tell us that, wow, what a great thing it did. Our total traffic to our site in September, we had 733,000 unique visitors. In that same time period last year, we had just a little over 41,000. I mean, that is just phenomenal. We introduced our mobile application. You know, you see all these people walking around checking on their phone. We introduced it for the first time last year, and we only had 3,256 people from the festival that went to that. This year, we had 16,151 visitors to our mobile application. So just all those things that social media plan told us to do. We had 400, and this is just for the month of September, 436,000 page views, which is 2.12 pages per visit. If they go past that first page, you've really accomplished a lot. We had band pictures on our website was up almost 7,000 people from the year before. This was the first year that we offered the availability to listen to every artist that had some type of video or some type of music out there. In 2010, we had 507 people listen to music on our website. This year in September, we had 26,000 408 folks visit. So it was really good. We were named Southeast Festival and Events 2010. We received a Bronze Kaleidoscope Award for festivals in our range. Our media coverage during the festival was phenomenal. We had live streaming by Music City Roots, which is a weekly radio show that they do in Nashville at the Loveless Cafe. They came and they did streaming audio live all weekend long. As a matter of fact, they are coming to Bristol on Thursday to meet and look at some of our venues because they really are interested in doing a monthly show from Bristol called Bristol City Roots that would be streamed all over the world too. So they're coming up. WDVX out of Knoxville was here all weekend. They did the whole month of September. They led up to our event with artists that were going to appear. WAMU out of Washington, D.C. was down here blogging all weekend. Our local radio coverage was awesome. I gave you all an article that appeared in American Songwriter, which is a national magazine, and it's very, to read that and see what they said about our festival. It was their first time coming here. I mean, it really speaks bounds for us. Richard Lewis, who is with the Virginia Department of Tourism, has been working with Southern Living for the past couple of years trying to get a feature article in the magazine about us, and he is feeling very confident that that's going to happen this year. So that could be huge for us. As you know, we do a special every December on tickets for the festival. You can get them for $35. Last year, we ordered 150 tickets in advance to sell, and we sold them. This year, we ordered 500 tickets, and everyone sold before December 31st. We've had probably a dozen people come in today that went to the mall on the 31st, and the mall had sold out, so we did honor those, because they did try to do that. And I think on the web, you could buy them on web, and it didn't, we didn't sell them. That we sold close to 200 tickets on the web during the month of December. So that's huge for us, considering last year it was less than half of that. So we're excited about that. Some videos, and I was going to show you a video that's showing at Heartwood right now, but we had some technical difficulty getting it downloaded. But we have a video that's running all the time at Heartwood. The Cricket Road is finishing up a video on the birthplace of country music that will be on their website and at Heartwood. But one of the things that we're excited about in February, there's a company called Music Voyager that does documentaries on the Travel Channel, and the first one that they did of the United States was down in New Orleans. So they decided they would do the music highways with the state of Tennessee, and they chose East Tennessee, Central Tennessee, and then West Tennessee. And so they did a thing on Memphis, they've done one on Nashville, but they did the Tennessee Department of Tourism fitted up most of the money, but BCMA, Rhythm and Roots, and the City of Bristol, Virginia, and the CVB came up with $7,500 so we could be featured in that. And it will be shown in February, and it will be shown to 30-some different countries. It will be translated into 15 different languages. And they said New Orleans, when we talked to them, that they could not believe the amount of tourism dollars that they've seen from that. So we're very excited about that. And we've seen the clip of Bristol, which is wonderful. They talked to Mrs. Warren that's still alive from the 1927s. They came to a border bash. They went to Machiavelli's. It's a phenomenal. But one of the things that really struck us when they went to Knoxville and talked to people down there, the Knoxville part, and we have 30-minute, we'll have a 30-minute section. The Knoxville people talked about the music in Bristol. So we're really on two sections. So we're in very heavy into planning our next year. We think it'll be another big success. We appreciate all the support that the city gives us, especially the city workers. I don't think you could travel the country and find better city workers than Bristol, Virginia, or Bristol, Tennessee. They're out there working through the whole thing with a smile on their face. I speak at different conferences, and one thing that I always hear is, how do you get the city to support you? And I say, you know, they're just great. They're great. And you truly are, and we very much appreciate all that you do for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. Appreciate the presentation, and we all look forward to the next year.
September 14th through the 16th. Put it on your calendar.
September 14th through the 16th. All right, thank you. Leah Ross with Rhythm and Roots. We have another presentation this evening. Mr. Broughton, if you'd like to.
Yeah, I sure would. Richard Lennon, if you'll step to the podium, please. Richard is the, I guess, the lead auditor, the managing partner for this audit assignment from Brown Edwards and Company. And Richard's going to make a presentation on this year's, on the 2011 audit. Go ahead, Richard. All right.
Thank you very much. Following Leah with Rhythm and Roots is a very tough act to follow. My presentation won't be nearly as exciting, I'm sure, as hers, but it is altogether necessary as well. As Jeff said, I'm Richard Lennon, partner in the accounting firm of Brown Edwards and Company. I have with me tonight two of our lead auditors, David Elkins and Ron Shadden, who performed good parts of the audit. We just completed the audit for the city of Bristol as of and for the year ended June 30th, 2011. First, I'd like to thank certainly the outstanding staffs, accounting staffs that you have both at the city under Terry Music's direction and at the schools under Becky Adams' direction. They do an outstanding job. Again, last year's report, as shown on page 7 of this year's audit, received the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association, as the report has received for the past several years. This report again will be submitted to them, to the GFOA, and we would expect that it would receive that same award. The GFOA sends back comments every year on report, and they had, again, very few comments on last year's report. And those have all been addressed in this year's report. Our auditor's report, our contribution, is an unqualified or clean opinion, which states that the financial statements, in our opinion, do fairly represent the financial position, results of operations of the city as of and for the year ended June 30, 2011. So again, another unqualified, clean opinion. It is followed by management's discussion and analysis, which is prepared by the finance departments of the city and schools, analyzing the numbers and providing you, the council, and the citizens with good explanation of the numbers and where they're derived from and how the city is doing. That's followed again by the financial statements, the explanatory notes to the statements, the statistical section, and in the back is the compliance section, which again is our contribution. And it does have, again, a clean opinion on compliance. And we're happy to report that in those reports we found no material weaknesses in internal controls and no reportable instances of non-compliance. Again, a very clean report. And again, it's a tribute to the outstanding work that the staffs do at the city and at the schools. Again, we thank you for the opportunity to work with the city. It's always a pleasure to work with all of you that we come in contact with. If you have any questions or comments regarding the report, we'll try to answer those. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lennon. Any questions, comments?
I'll make a couple of comments. My first question is, have you bought your Rhythm and Roots tickets yet? Don't answer.
Well,
Don't
we're-
answer,
we're-
but they're available.
We're one of the state sponsors for
There
that.
you go.
and,
So you get some tickets.
We do.
Fantastic. And just wanted to say that I've heard from our staff and I've heard from some of your folks that, that it's a good working relationship. So greatly appreciate that from both our staff side and your side. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Minnick.
Uh-huh.
And thank you for being a stage sponsor.
Our pleasure.
Moving on in our agenda this evening, we've got two public hearings. So we'll close the regular city council meeting and open up public hearings. Mr. Broughton, if you want to tell us about the first one.
I'd be happy to. The first public hearing tonight is what we call the Fairmount Neighborhood South rezoning. This is the result of a year-long study, as the council will recall, undertaken by the Community Development Department to understand better the Fairmount neighborhood and working with the residents of the neighborhood to identify ways to enhance and strengthen the community going forward in time. Two of the elements that came out of that, three of the elements that came out of that planning work with the residents was the need to rezone certain areas of the neighborhood, and this is one of those. This is second reading, and this will rezone a portion of the neighborhood from M1, which is our light industrial district, to B3, which is our general business district. Incorporates an area of about 13 acres, two separate tracts, and as I said, it's consistent with the neighborhood plan. The next slide will show a map of the areas subject to the rezoning. They're highlighted there in purple, surrounded by a red border, two separate tracts. The one which would be to the lower left on the screen is generally bounded by Monte Vista Street on the north side, Beechwood Drive, to the south, Virginia Avenue to the east, and railroad tracks to the west. And the second track, which is to the top right on the screen, generally lies between Food City, the shopping center, runs from there to the east to the Court Trim, Aurora Hardwoods property, generally in the vicinity, and you can see it graphically depicted on the map. Next slide, please. The B3 district, which has been recommended to the City Council by the Planning Commission, is our general business district, as I described, and it's designed for general business activity that does not require a central location. Conversely, the M1 district, which is recommended to be this area to be rezoned from, is designed for light industrial and certain business uses. As a part of this rezoning review, and the question I think came up at the first reading, all of the businesses that are existing in the areas that are subject to the rezoning remain conforming, except for one, which happens to be Necessary Oil, which, as the council will recall from our previous conversation, will remain unaffected by the rezoning and will be able to continue in full operation going forward in time, even with this rezoning. Next slide, please. As a part of our process of looking at rezoning and how this community was deemed to grow in the future, the area of the rezoning, as you can see from this future land use map, is shown as commercial. So the area, both of the areas subject to the rezoning, were identified a few years ago as opportunity arose to change use going in forward in time from light industrial to commercial. With that, Mr. Mayor, it would be appropriate to seek public comment regarding the proposal to rezone the Fairmount neighborhood south from M1 to B3.
Thank you, Mr. Broughton. This will be the only opportunity for those in attendance to speak on this particular issue. This is the public hearing. Is there anyone in attendance this evening who wishes to address the council on this particular rezoning? If you do, if you'll please come to the microphone and state your name and feel free to state your opinion there.
My name is Jeff Cross. I represent one of the properties being rezoned. Just a couple of questions. Why is it being rezoned? How will it affect the market value of the property? The assessed value of the property, which would result in my taxes that I pay every year.
Mr. Cross, if you'll identify all your questions, and then I'll help the council understand the answers to your questions.
Okay, why is it being rezoned from M1?
Do you have any other questions?
No, I do
Mr.
not.
Cross? Thank you. With the council's permission, I will answer those questions. The rezoning was, as the council knows, one of the objectives in our last work plan a year ago was to undertake a study of the Fairmont neighborhood, identify ways to strengthen and enhance that neighborhood. As a part of that planning process, it was identified needs where the certain areas of this neighborhood could be enhanced by changing some of the land uses going forward in time. And as a part of that process, this area, as the council will recall, was identified to change from industrial to business, which was seen to be a more compatible use with the residential area surrounding it. The zoning has no effect on the assessed value of property, and as a consequence has no effect on the taxes that are paid.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. Anyone else wish to address the council on this particular rezoning? If you'll please come to the microphone.
Good evening. I thought I was going to have someone here tonight to speak for me since I'm not feeling too well, but I still don't understand.
Miss Shirley Jackson.
Yes,
right?
it is.
Yes,
Sorry.
We have to get
I
it
just
in
assume everybody knows me since I've got
we
a big
we
mouth.
do, but we have to get it in the record. Thank you, Miss Jackson.
I still don't understand because we got 2 notices in December and both those maps were different. And then we got another notice in January and that map was different. So all I want to know is 2 things. I want to know what part of the railroad track, which side, is it between the railroad tracks and 2nd Street that you all are going to rezone? Are you taking away the business section? Because I think I live in the business section. My home's the first one when you come across the bridge, which we won't discuss the bridge. Are you all planning on, because all I have heard is that there's going to be Habitat for Humanity and HUD homes built all around that area. We know the mail trucks are gone now. That is a business property which is behind my home. My home faces Pennsylvania Avenue, as you all know. So I just want to know where exactly is these homes going to be built?
Ms. Jackson, there's 2 rezonings associated with the Fairmont neighborhood, and this is not the one that is more closely aligned to where you live.
It's south of me.
This one is south
Yes,
of you.
I understand.
So if you wouldn't mind and when we come to that one, I'll touch on it, but it's actually in a different area and it doesn't even apply to anything that's on the
Don't
agenda
apply in
tonight.
anything around my home whatsoever.
Let me come to that when we
Okay.
get there.
Because my home is a historical home. It may not look like it.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Is there anyone else wish to address the council on this particular rezoning? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing on this one. Mr. Broughton will open the public hearing rezoning of property on Highway 421.
Thank you. The second public hearing tonight is property on Highway 421. The rezoning that is being considered this evening on second reading is to rezone property with the street address of 2037 and 2043 U.S. Highway 421 from R1A, which is a single-family residential district, to B3, which is our general business district. The rezoning incorporates an area about 4 acres. Next slide, please, Sherry. Here's an aerial photograph of the area subject to the rezoning. The area that's crosshatched, again, it's a little hard to read and see the contrast there, but it's the area in the center of the screen with CenturyLink, and the word CenturyLink above it there. That property is owned by CenturyLink and is a equipment facility that they operate. And to give you a sense of where that is, the highway, of course, would be the pink area running immediately to the left. Highway 394 comes in at the very bottom of the screen, connects in there. And McCroskey RV Sales may give you a point of reference. That's across the road to the west or to the left on the screen. Next slide, Sherry. The B3 district, as we described in the previous public hearing, is our general business district, and it's designed for most commercial uses that don't require a central location. Conversely, the current zoning is R1A, which is designed for single-family residential dwellings. Next slide, please. Again, we go to the land use map to see what that area is envisioned to be going forward in time. And in this case, you'll see that that area is yellow, which in this case indicates single-family residential. So looking at the land use map, the process that took place about 5 years ago suggests that this area should remain a single-family residential, and the rezoning would be not inconsistent with the land use map. But there are also land use policies that go with the map, and as a part of the process of reviewing a rezoning request, you look at both the map and the policies, and what you'll find in the policy section that there is policy that supports the expansion of existing commercial areas, which this in fact does. The roadway in front of the property is actually zone B3, and the change of that property from a single-family residential to a B3 use steps off from that B3 district. And then when you look practically at the area, the likelihood of that area developing as a single-family residential area is very limited because of its proximity to the highway. And so consequently, the Planning Commission has recommended to you that the rezoning to B3 be moved forward as they did recommend. So with that, Mr. Mayor, it would be appropriate to seek public comment on the rezoning of property on Highway 421.
Thank you, Mr. Broughton. Is there anyone in attendance this evening who wishes to speak to council on this particular issue? This will be the only opportunity that you have in this public hearing. On this particular rezoning, is there anyone who wishes to address the council? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. And moving on to our next order of business, appearance of citizens. This is the opportunity for anyone in attendance who, if it's not on the agenda, if it's just something on your mind, something you want to address the council on, now's the opportunity to come to our microphone, give us your name and address so that we can get it in the record, and an opportunity to speak on any issue that is not on the agenda this evening. Yes, sir.
Is the Fairmont in R3 residential on the agenda?
Yeah, it's coming up on the agenda. So you're going to have the opportunity there on the Fairmount area later. Okay. Anyone on something that's not on the agenda? See no brave souls coming forward, so we'll move right along then. Next up is appointments. Now, we have 3 appointments this evening, or 3 areas of appointments: Beer Board, Tree Board, and the Library Board. So first up, Mr. Broughton, if you'll tell us about the Beer Board.
We have 2 appointments tonight to be made to the Beer Board. Those are appointments for 4-year terms, and there are 5 members on the board. We have 3 candidates that have submitted applications. They include David Weaver Eckert III, Craig Kistner, and Vincent Turner.
Is there any member of council wish to speak on behalf of any of those folks who have asked for these appointments?
I do.
Okay.
I have had a temporary beer permit for quite some time, over 7 years, and I've worked with Mr. Kistner on the beer board, and he is just an extremely qualified candidate to be on the board and remain on the board. He does a phenomenal job, and I'd like to present him tonight, as well as Mr. Vince Turner. He is a son of Mr. Turner who was on the board, and I have had a very deep discussion on the responsibility of the job, and I believe he's qualified to take that seat as well.
Thank you, Ben. Anyone else wish to speak on behalf of anyone?
I'll just say also that, which we frequently these days are saying, that it's really nice when we have qualified candidates, and we have 3 qualified candidates tonight, so for 2 positions, sometimes a hard choice, and we encourage anybody who doesn't get on a board to try for another board or try for the same board again, as well as some of the other opportunities in the community. So we are very grateful to have qualified folks apply.
Thank you, Margaret. The only thing wrong with being mayor sometimes is I'm supposed to speak last, and you pretty much said everything I was going to say. Craig Kistner has served, I think, something like 10 years now on the beer board. We appreciate his service. And Vince Turner, son of Don Turner, who served 20-some years, I think, on our beer board, about 20 years. And while I don't know Mr. Akert or Mr. Turner, I just think that's neat that he's following in his father's footsteps or wishes to do so. With that said, folks.
For a term on the beer board, Ms. Dolan votes for Mr. Kistner and Mr. Turner. Mr. Shoemaker votes for Mr. Kistner and Mr. Turner. Mr. Staton votes for Mr. Kistner and Mr. Turner. Mr. Zandy votes for Mr. Kistner and Mr. Turner. And Ms. Feierabend votes for Mr. Kistner and Mr. Turner, each of whom are appointed to the beer board for a 4-year term of office ending January 31st, 2016.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Broughton. I know that Craig Kistner is here. Do we have Mr. Turner in attendance? Mr. Turner, thank you. Look forward to having your help there on the beer board, and thank you for being willing to serve. And Craig, appreciate you coming back. How many years now? A lot. All right. Well, that's good. That's good. Thank you. Next, I think we've added an area here on the library board, so I think we're going to do that next in alphabetical order. We have one person who's asked for that. Would you tell us that about that, Mr. Broughton?
Yes, you have an appointment to be made tonight to the library board. This is for a 3-year term of office that is actually running. It's actually into its first month, and so it'll be for a period ending December 31st, 2014. And you have one candidate tonight to consider, and that's Mr. Walter Morton.
Thank you, Mr. Broughton. Is anyone on council wish to speak on behalf of Mr. Morton?
I'll speak on behalf of Walter Morton, and y'all read his application, and he's had some experience in Washington, D.C. area and doing research at different libraries up in Maryland and Washington, D.C., and has some different ideas for our library board, and I serve on the library board, and I think he'll bring some different ideas and different perspectives to our board that'll be helpful. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Ms. Feierabend votes for Mr. Morton. Mr. Staton votes for Mr. Morton. Mr. Zandy votes for Mr. Morton. Mr. Shoemaker votes for Mr. Morton. And Ms. Dolan votes for Mr. Morton. Walter Morton is appointed to the library board.
Thank you, Mr. Broughton. Mr. Morton, is he in attendance this evening? Okay, thank you. And last appointment this evening is for the tree board. We have one young gentleman who's asked to be appointed, Mr. Broughton.
Yes, for the tree board, this is an unexpired term of office that actually ends June 30th of 2012. So this will be for a short period of time, and of course, come June, which will actually be July by council policy, there will be an opportunity to extend the term to Mr. Chandler, should he be appointed tonight, or to any other candidates the council chooses to appoint. And as I mentioned, the single candidate for this position this evening is Chris Chandler.
Thank you, Mr. Broughton. Mrs. Fire-Robin, would you like to speak on behalf of Mr. Chandler?
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's always nice to have qualified candidates, like I said. It's also very, very nice to have young people who are interested. And Chris just finished his master's in the first class at UT for landscape architecture. Finished last May. He's a Tennessee High graduate. And he has done 2 projects from his studies, both of them in Bristol, working with Sherry Brown. The most recent one was Bristol West, and then he did one also on Edgemont Avenue, Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, with trying to look at how you can incorporate drainage and different things that you have to have into the natural landscape. And I think we're really lucky that he's in our area and that he is interested in serving on the tree board. Also, I'll say his mom, Susie Chandler, is one of our auxiliary police and that finished not too long ago, who we see at parades and Border Bash, and is quite thrilled to serve in that role too. And she's on Parks and Rec, Parks and Rec board, and rides her bicycle through Steels Creek, and I think reports on every tree and trail that's blocked quite thoroughly for Mr. Napier back there, who's nodding his head. Anyway, Chris Chandler, it's awesome to have a young person and somebody who's really talented, and hopefully Mr. Napier, he will challenge the tree board to move to higher levels than ever imagined.
So do you know anything about Mr. Chandler then?
Do you want to say anything else? Sorry.
All right. Mr. Broughton, I think we're ready.
It's a short meeting today.
Mr. Shoemaker.
Did he get elected?
Mr. Shoemaker votes for Mr. Chandler. Mr. Zandy votes for Mr. Chandler. Mr. Staton votes for Mr. Chandler. Ms. Dolan votes for Mr. Chandler, and Ms. Fire-Robin votes for Mr. Chandler. And Chris Chandler is appointed to the tree board for the unexpired term through the end of June this year.
And I don't think Mr. Chandler is in the audience this evening. Next on our agenda is ordinances and resolution. First reading of new ordinances. First up, ordinance 11-26. Mr. Broughton.
Ordinance number 11-26 is an ordinance to amend the zoning map of Bristol, Tennessee by designating certain properties as RE, Established Residential Neighborhood, Fairmount North. This will sound sort of familiar to the City Council and to those listening both in the audience and at home. The Fairmount neighborhood is a neighborhood that a special study was given over the past year or so to identify, as I said several times this night, to enhance, strengthen, and protect the neighborhood. As a part of that planning process, several areas were identified for rezoning. This is the part of the rezoning that's associated with that planning process and is known as the Fairmount Rezoning North. The council will recall we attempted to pass on first reading this rezoning in December, but because of some additional staff and planning commission work that was required, no action took place in December. And it went back to the Planning Commission for further study. In December, the Planning Commission reported back out, which is where we are tonight, and as the council will recall, we spent a few minutes at the December work session talking through this rezoning, since we had a false start when we back in December and had to restart the clock on that, so to speak. But this is the Fairmount North, and it rezones a large area of that neighborhood, approximately 170 acres, rezones it from the current R3, which is our multifamily residential district, to the RE district, which is our established residential district. There was a lot of discussion. I'm going to bring up a couple of maps, but it retains an area in the vicinity of Fairmount School in the current R3 and was the subject of our recent discussions. And maybe you can bring the next slide up, please. This area, this map shows the entire area subject to the rezoning. The area that is in the center and is in colored orange, that is the Fairmount Elementary School parcel and some properties that are laying adjacent to it. That area is not subject to the rezoning. It was highlighted on this map as, again, because it was a topic of some significant discussion. So that area, just again to get you oriented, is not subject to the rezoning, but rather the area outlined in black and colored in bright yellow. That is the area that is proposed to go from our multifamily residential district to the RE district. Next slide. I think we zero in again, just again because there was so much discussion, the R3 district, and what you have there is basically the school, and other properties that were built specifically as attached single-family homes or as apartment buildings for the most part. So that area is not subject to a rezoning. Next slide, please. The RE district is a new zoning classification that was put in place by the City Council about 2 years ago. And it's designed for established, hence its name, established districts such as the Fairmont neighborhood. And it has it as its fundamental goal to allow for the existing pattern and character of the neighborhood in its original form to remain and to, in essence, be established going forward in time. And it's set up to allow for harmonious redevelopment with single-family detached dwellings and duplex dwellings only. The current R3 zoning allows for multifamily units, apartments. And the purpose of this rezoning fundamentally is to prevent from additional apartment dwellings, apartment houses from being placed in the Fairmont neighborhood, in the Fairmont North neighborhood. The current R3 allows for apartment buildings, multifamily houses to be established with up to 13 dwelling units per acre. So it allows for a very dense housing development pattern in an area that was never designed for anything but single-family homes, except in those newer areas that were built specifically for attached structures and for apartment uses. Next slide, please. Is that the last slide? Okay. So this restarts the clock on all of that. And again, the subject last time was what happens when non-conforming uses are created by a rezoning, and as the council will recall, and for the benefit of the audience, there are provisions with a rezoning for rental properties that could have prevented them from being reconstructed if they were damaged, which was recognized as an element of a rezoning that was not deemed to be desirable going forward. And so the rezoning was tightened, and the R3 district around the Fairmont neighborhood was locked down better to recognize that there were specifically a number of units built specifically to be apartments and specifically to be attached single-family homes. And the rezoning protects those in a way that earlier we didn't protect them in the way they should have been. I don't know that I can answer Ms. Jackson's question about the rezoning as it relates to her property. Sherry, perhaps you're in a position, if you understand where she resides and her question, if you would mind try to answer that for the benefit of the City Council.
I'll try, because I think I understand where Ms. Jackson lives. She lives right off Anderson Street Bridge. This is Anderson Street Bridge approaching the Fairmount neighborhood. The curve you see on the slide represents, of course, the landing and the traffic light area at the end of the bridge, and then the curve turns into Pennsylvania Avenue. I believe Ms. Jackson is on the right-hand side. Where did she go? There you are. Okay. Within the first block before you get to Linwood? Okay. And she is in the area that is white and is not part of the rezoning that's before council tonight.
So, to your question, Ms. Jackson, none of this affects you, nothing as it relates to the property you currently own is subject to any of the rezoning matters currently before City Council.
Thank you, Mr. Broughton. Is there any other questions or clarifications of council for staff?
Could I put Sherry on the spot, just to kind of say what Jeff's already said, but there's some people here who haven't been here at some of our other meetings, and just the big picture of what we've done, that Fairmount is historic, we've done that we're just preserving the great community and the historic nature of Fairmount.
It is, Fairmount is listed as a district on the National Register of Historic Places, and it is the city's first residential district. And all of the area that you see in both yellow and orange on the slide that's before you tonight is included within that National Register boundary. Fairmount is richly enhanced with very large, lovely older homes, and many of them through the years kind of morphed from boarding houses into apartments and really placed an undue density level in the neighborhood and began to kind of erode that wonderful character and charm. And what this does is implements the plan and what the neighborhood wanted, which was to enhance and protect that charm and that sense of community in the Fairmount neighborhood, and lessens the potential for more of that eroding density level.
Thank you, and that's also what the rezoning of the manufacturing, which to B3 commercial, that takes the manufacturing that's inappropriate for a residential area, which wasn't residential when it first was established, but the neighborhood grew up around it. So it's all part of the picture of really trying to keep our wonderful neighborhood wonderful and help some of it that's changed to gradually be able to go back to the character that it had.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions of staff? If not, then I'll ask if anyone in attendance wishes to speak to council on this particular ordinance. Yes, sir.
Good evening, and thank you. My name is Haskell Dale Carrick, C-A-R-R-I-C-K. And perhaps this issue has already been addressed, and I'm not aware of it. I've made a couple of calls. Haven't been able to be here at the meetings. I own a 1947 built, constructed, 3-unit brick, 2-story apartment building. It was designed and built in 1947 for 3-unit apartments. It's had about 4 or 5 owners since then. I purchased it in 2004. It is not a conversion of a house of any sort. It's one of the very few houses or buildings that were built for commercial tenants, residential tenants. I was wondering if there was any thought in the plan to retain multifamily buildings on a grandfathered basis, since this has never been anything other than a commercial, paid-for, taxed, 3-unit dwelling.
And what's
Could we
the
get the
address
address?
of it?
It's on the corner of Georgia and Taylor Avenue. When purchasing and refinancing this property, it's very difficult to try to find any compares. It's often even compared to stick-built homes that have been converted to houses, but it's not.
Were there any other questions, Mr. Carrick?
No, that's the only question.
Okay. Well, for the, our practice, Mr. Carrick, is for the comments to come to council, and then I'll help council understand the answer to the questions. Thank you for your questions. As it relates to the home that was described, the three-unit apartment building, is not in an area that's being recommended to remain R3, and as a consequence, it'll become a non-conforming use. There's nothing that prevents the three-unit apartment from continuing in perpetuity as a three-bedroom apartment, three-unit apartment. What happens, though, and the council knows this from our last conversation, should that property be damaged through man-made or natural causes to an extent of greater than 40% of its assessed value is established, then the property would not be allowed to be brought back to anything but a single family or a duplex structure. So as long as nothing falls to harm the structure, it can remain in that configuration forever. Should it be damaged to greater than 40% of its value, then it cannot be returned to a three-unit structure, but could be nothing more than a one or two unit structure. The reason, and I know I wasn't at the Planning Commission meeting, but looking at the notes and understanding the discussion that took place, I know the Planning Commission was aware of circumstances like that. But as a part of the process of identifying what areas should be protected by going to the R3 and what areas be maintained what areas should be changed to the established residential district, which allows single and duplex units only, and what area should remain in the current R3 that allows for multifamily structures. I know there was a discussion about maintaining a cohesive boundary for that R3, and so that area focused around Fairmount School is the area that they identified. They also were cognizant of the fact that even though this building apparently was built specifically for that purpose, they were cognizant of the fact of trying to keep the character of this neighborhood overall as a single-family neighborhood with the opportunity for two-family structures to be located on a lot. So there was some discussion, I know, by the Planning Commission on that, but should, as I described, should more than the structure be damaged to greater than 40%, it could not be returned to a three-unit apartment.
Thank you, Mr. Broad. Is there anyone else in attendance wish to address the council on this issue? If you'll please come to the mic.
Howdy, I'm Brad Bingham. I live at 409 Carolina Avenue. Like him, I have a building that was built specifically, three-unit apartment house. So you talk about historical integrity and keeping it to that, but yet you draw squares around condos, R3, when his building and my building, to keep an integrity, should have a square drawn around it for R3, for 409 Carolina Avenue, and whatever his address is, because that's the integrity of the historical content of the neighborhood. It was built in the 30s, three-unit apartment house. Go back to your records, and if we looked at our records and looked at the study, you would probably find many of these buildings in there that you should not be zoning if you want to keep the historical aspect of the integrity of the neighborhood, and that's the way it was built. So I would ask you to draw a square around my property and keep it R3, because to say it's 40% damaged and the insurance company comes in and says, okay, you know, it's like the condo people. Nobody looked at that. You want to get somebody to build a duplex with you? So if somebody's living in 3 units, are you going to get somebody, you going to kick somebody out and then only build a duplex back? Or, you know what I'm saying. So I'm asking for mine and others that's in these areas, draw a square around them. Keep them R3. Thank you.
Mr. Bingham, was it 3 units you said?
3 units.
3 units. Anyone, excuse me, anyone else in attendance wish to address the council on this particular issue? Seeing no others, what's the pleasure of council?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Okay, Margaret, we have a, thank you, and Joel, a second.
And for discussion, what I would, I mean, this is the first that these properties have been brought to my attention. I don't know if Planning Commission, if they visited Planning Commission or not, but I think going ahead and approving it tonight, I feel comfortable doing that, but I think it is interesting for historic, I mean, 1937 and 1947 are certainly in the age range of being historic. Anyway, I think I would encourage both of y'all to go talk with Sherry Brown and if that's possible to study those, if there's some non-conforming uses and whether those need to come back to us at some, going through Planning Commission if it's appropriate, find out what other places do with unique situations like this. But I feel comfortable passing this tonight and then encouraging you folks to, and for our staff to look at it and see if there's ways to work with the buildings that have been historically small apartment, not big houses that are divided into apartments, but historically apartment buildings. So that's how I feel.
Okay. Thank you, Margaret. Any other discussion by council members?
Yes. I also feel that we certainly don't want to get into spot zoning. When you mentioned dwell square around my property, that would promote spot zoning, and that's something we want to walk away from. But I do highly recommend that the property owners as such, you two that presented yourself tonight, to get with Sherry Brown and explore the opportunities, how we can protect your properties, if possibly keep them in R3. We have done tremendous work on this for past 3 months to get it where it is today, to protect as many citizens as possibly we can. This is the first I've heard of you and your presentation tonight. I've attended the planning meetings as well, and we do the best we can to make sure that if there is any room to accommodate you. But I think we need to pass this ordinance to move on, and then also think about what else we can do.
Thank you, Ben. Who else on the council has further discussion?
I'll just add, appreciate that we brought this back rather than, that it was rather confusing to all of us last time, so, with the different maps. So, not just to residents, but to us as well as it evolved. So, thank you very much for taking through that process.
And I would like to say thank you, Sherry, for changing the colors on the maps.
I'll just very quickly say, Mr. Bingham, was that 410 Carolina?
409.
409, I'm sorry. It took me for just a second there, Mr. Carrick, to place. I know that neighborhood pretty well, and it took me a minute and finally dawned on me which building you're talking about. I haven't got a mental picture yet of yours. That's the reason I want to make sure I go by there and look at it. Sherry, an unbelievable job you and your staff have done to try to put all this together, this, from the time that we started the RE designation, it makes a lot of sense to somebody who's lived in old houses for many years, starting on Pennsylvania Avenue over there. But as somebody who also started out their first house on Pennsylvania Avenue, buying a fixer-upper that had been cut up, a beautiful old house that had been cut up into 4 not-so-beautiful apartments, and trying to bring that back to, just a piece of the glory that original 1890 house started out as, and when we left it, it was a house with 1 small apartment. So we cut it back down to 3. I want to see the best things happen for the Fairmount area over there. It's a wonderful, wonderful neighborhood. I'm also, a house that was built in the 30s as apartments or built in the 40s. At that time, you could pretty much do whatever you wanted anywhere you wanted to. But with some historical significance there and some age on those apartment houses, built as such, not too different from the ones in the orange that were built as apartment units or townhouses. So if there's some way that we can look at that or work to kind of guarantee some protection for those two houses, I would love to see it. But with that said, I think, Terry, we're ready for the vote.
Mayor Shoemaker?
Yes.
Councilman Zandy?
Yes.
Councilwoman Dolan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fire-Robin?
Yes.
Vice Mayor State?
Yes.
Moving on to adoption of ordinances, second reading. The first two we have already had public hearings about. Mr. Broughton, ordinance 11-27.
Ordinance number 11-27 is an ordinance to amend the zoning map of Bristol, Tennessee by designating certain properties as B3 General Business District, Fairmount South. This is the subject, as the mayor just indicated, of the first public hearing this evening, which will rezone property from M1 to B3. In accordance with the City Council's policy, as there was a public hearing already held on this matter, there will be no additional public comment at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Broughton. What is the pleasure of council?
Move to approve.
Joe, we've got a
Second.
motion. Okay. And Margaret, a second. Thank you. Additional discussion by council.
Just, this goes with the plan to, and the manufacturing and residential don't mix too well, and our community has developed, and also, from what I understand, the folks at Necessary Oil are okay with this, moving in this direction. So it's great to see us follow through with what we said we would do, and what the neighborhood said they wanted.
Any other comments? Terry, we're ready for the vote.
Mayor Shoemaker?
Yes.
Councilman Zandy?
Yes.
Councilwoman Dolan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fire-Robin?
Yes.
Vice Mayor State?
Yes.
Next up, ordinance 11-28. We've also had the public hearing on that. Mr. Broughton?
Ordinance number 11-28 is an ordinance to amend the zoning map of Bristol, Tennessee by designating certain properties as B3 General Business District with the street address 2037 and 2043 Highway 421. This will rezone that 4-acre parcel from R1A to B3, subject to the second public hearing this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Broughton. Is there any clarification needed from staff? What's the pleasure of council?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, thank you, Joel and Ben, for the second. Additional discussion then by council. Hearing none. Terry, I think we're ready for the vote.
Mayor Shoemaker?
Yes.
Councilman Zandy?
Yes.
Councilwoman Dolan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fire-Robin?
Yes.
Vice Mayor State?
Yes.
Up next then, ordinance 11-29. Mr. Broughton.
Ordinance number 11-29 is an ordinance to amend Chapter 14 of the Code of Ordinances relating to buildings and building regulations. Again, second reading tonight will be to approve, to adopt the new International Code Council Family of Building Codes, the 2012 edition, as well as to adopt the 2011 National Electrical Code. These codes, there's 11 within that family of codes in the National Electrical Code. There's actually 11 building codes that are being adopted with this action tonight, and all of that will bring our code enforcement, our building codes up to the most current levels, the most contemporary standards that are promulgated on a national basis by officials owners, building owners, contractors, and others, safety officials, others with interest in building codes. And So this will replace codes that are now starting to age, including the 2006 version of the ICC codes and the 2005 version of the National Electrical Code. By updating the codes, as this will accomplish, it'll allow us to stay current with the state requirements, to have current versions of the codes in place to allow us to continue to enforce codes on a local level. And also, as the council will recall, because of the phase-in of projects that may already be under design under the existing codes, with adoption of this ordinance tonight, it will allow for plans, building designs to be brought forward and approved either under the old codes, the 2006 ICC codes, or the 2012 ICC codes. So there'll be a year's period of time, in essence, where we will accept plans under either code, either family of codes, to allow the greatest flexibility to anybody that's attempting to construct improvements within the city. With that, we ask for your approval this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Brodden. Any clarification needed from staff? Is there anyone in attendance then who would like to address the City Council on this particular issue? This would be your opportunity. We have not had the public hearing on this one. Anyone wish to address council? Hearing none, what's the pleasure of council?
Motion to move forward.
Thank you, Ben.
Second.
And Michelle, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Do we have additional discussion? Jack, have you got these memorized yet? It's a lot. That's a lot of stuff there. Jack Spurgeon, Codes Enforcement up there in the back with our fire department, and our Chief Bob Barnes. If there's no other discussion from council, Ms. Terry, I think we're ready for the vote.
Mayor Shoemaker?
Yes.
Councilman Zambi?
Yes.
Councilwoman Dolan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Byer-Robert?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Steen?
Yes.
Up next, ordinance 11-30, Mr. Broughton.
Ordinance number 11-30 is an ordinance to amend section 62-165 of the Code of Ordinances relating to temporary sidewalk cafe permits for special events. This is a pretty simple amendment to our sidewalk cafe regulations. What it does is it allows for community theaters to be eligible to receive a temporary sidewalk cafe permit during special events. Special events, festivals, or other cultural events. And basically what that means is a temporary permit would only be available to a community theater during times when a street was closed in front of them, allowing for the cafe to be placed out on the sidewalk in front. So the genesis for this change was one of our community theaters seeking an opportunity to operate a permit during certain festivals that the city has and won't be mentioned for fear of a long conversation about them. But with that, this will allow going forward for any community theater to receive that temporary permit as I just described. It's recommended to you as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Broughton. Any clarification needed by council to staff? Hearing none, is there anyone in attendance this evening who would like to address the City Council on this particular matter? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of council?
Motion to move forward.
Thank you, Ben.
Second.
And Margaret, thank you for the second. Additional discussion then by council members.
Looks good.
Ms. Wolf, I hope you're not leaving. I was going to thank you for coming. I failed to do so earlier. Ms. Wolf, Susan Wolf, Director of our Avoca Library. By all means, go on home. I hate to embarrass you. I just forgot to acknowledge you earlier in the evening, and I meant to do so at the end. Thank you for all your hard work at Avoca Library. Thank you. I apologize for embarrassing you. Got a little sidetracked there, I'm sorry. I just didn't want to miss an opportunity to thank her. Any discussion from council on this particular ordinance?
In good shape.
I would just like to say, our Paramount Theater, Theater Bristol, our nonprofit theaters, they go hard at it all the time, trying to make sure that they get the bills paid. They are two huge blessings to our community. I don't know anybody in this town that wasn't so relieved when we were able to bring the old Paramount back. And if we can do some things like this to help enable them to earn some additional income through the course of the year to help make sure that they stay open year after year, I think it is incumbent upon us to do so. Anything that we can do to help the Paramount and the Theater Bristol, I'm right there with it. And you know, it's a great time to have a cafe during that music festival, Mr. Brock. Terry, I think we're ready for the vote.
Councilman Sandy?
Yes.
Councilwoman Dolan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Feyerabend?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Staten?
Yes.
And Mayor Shoemaker?
Yes. Moving on then to resolutions. Resolution 12-8. Mr. Broughton?
Resolution number 12-8 is a resolution appending the Strategic Economic Development Plan. At the December City Council meeting, the Strategic Partnerships for Economic Growth and Sustainability 2012 was accepted as presented by Blue Ribbon Steering Committee that had worked over the course of the last 4 to 5 months on identifying ways in which our Bristol economy could grow and sustain over time. As a part of that process, the City Council, both at the November work session and again at the December work session, reviewed their work and also identified additional objectives that were felt desirable to append to that plan and provide additional activities to pursue over the course of the planning period, which in the case of the recommendations were both for a short-term primary period of the next 2 years as well as through a longer period of time, which was a 3 to 5 year strategy. There were 3 items that were specifically identified in that discussion process, and they included seeking development opportunities in the Virens and Bristol Motor Speedway, which was identified as both a short-term primary and a 3 to 5 year strategy in terms of its priority. It had its purpose to support tourism and tourism-related activities and strengthen and expand and attract businesses. So that was one of the 3 items that the City Council identified as good additions to the plan. Another was as it related to City of Bristol support activities, and that was to establish a business retention plan, and that supported goals of strengthening, expanding, and attracting businesses, as well as building community capacity for economic development. There were a couple of key actions identified as a part of that objective, and it had as a priority a short-term primary. And then the third item that was identified by City Council was to update the city's website, particularly its economic development elements, which had as it supported goals of expanding and attracting, strengthening business opportunities, and again, building community capacity for economic development. And that had as a priority a short-term primary as well, which meant for that to be accomplished in the very near future. So with that, this resolution will approve those 3 objectives, add them to the 70 or so other objectives that have been identified by the steering committee, and will give us clear direction as to activities to pursue going forward to strengthen our economy. With that, we ask that you approve the resolution as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Broughton. Any additional clarification needed by council? Anyone in attendance this evening wish to address the City Council on this particular matter? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
I have a motion to approve.
Second?
Thank you, Michelle. And Ben for the second. Any additional discussion?
I would just like to say that the whole economic development plan was definitely a labor of love. We had business leaders from throughout the city to give of their time and talents to come up with all of these different objectives. The additions that will be put into the business plan will basically be things that the city is going to be working toward. We have a great and vibrant downtown. We need to keep working on that. I think with the addition of developing on the Parkway, and also part of the economic development plan was Exit 74, that we're going to continue to strengthen our city. Also, while we are trying to recruit businesses to the area, of major concern is keeping the businesses here that we already have and growing the businesses that we already have, so that's going to be added to it. And one very important factor in growing our city is updating our website. We recently went to a national meeting, and at that meeting they talked about the most important thing that you can do for your city is to have a very visible website. So I think putting resources into that will be a great addition to our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. That's a good synopsis there of the additions. Anyone else?
I think it's a good year, a good New Year resolution, that's for sure.
Indeed. Ms. Terry, I think we're ready for the vote.
Mayor Shoemaker?
Yes.
Councilman Zandy?
Yes.
Councilwoman Dolan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Feierabend?
Yes.
Vice Mayor State?
Yes.
All right, thank you. It's now time for our consent agenda. These are voted on as a group. Sometimes it's housekeeping matters, it's purchasing things for the city. We lump these together, vote them as a group. Any council member can pull something off the agenda, and then we do that if we do need to discuss them. Otherwise, it's done without discussion. Mr. Broughton, if you'll tell us what we have on our consent agenda.
Yes, we have 10 items on the consent agenda. It includes the minutes of the December 6th meeting, minutes of the December 20th special call meeting, minutes of the December 20th work session, includes Resolution 12-1 approving an agreement to conduct an actuarial study for post-employment benefits, includes Resolution 12-2 authorizing the purchase of disc golf equipment, approves Resolution 12-3 endorsing the Bristol, Tennessee City Schools Stone Castle Rejuvenation Project, includes Resolution 12-4 awarding a bid for recycling services, includes Resolution 12-5 accepting a grant from the Tennessee Department of Agriculture under its Farmers Market Grant Program, includes Resolution 12-6 awarding a bid for the purchase of bulk fuel, and it includes Resolution 12-7 awarding a bid for the purchase of an automated side loader refuse collection vehicle and rescinding a non-responsive award.
Thank you, Mr. Broughton. Is there any member of council wish to have any of these items taken off the agenda in order to discuss? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second?
Thank you, Margaret. And Ben for the second. Ms. Terry, we're ready for the vote.
Mayor Shoemaker?
Yes.
Councilman Zandy?
Yes.
Councilwoman Dolan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Feierabend?
Yes.
Vice Mayor State?
Yes.
That concludes our regular agenda. Up next, we have our city manager's report. Mr. Broughton, have at it.
Well, I think I'll have no report tonight since we're running long tonight, but I'll be happy to answer questions if you have anything later on for me to respond to.
Thank you, Mr. Broughton. Dr. Lilly, we've got you in attendance. Margaret would not forgive me if I didn't ask you, would you like to tell us what the school system's doing?
Sure, I will be happy to. First, I'd like to thank you for your support and endorsement of the Stone Castle Rejuvenation Project. We do think that the castle is an icon of Bristol, and we look forward to working with the community to improve it for generations to come. This week so far, we've had a work day and an in-service day getting ready to welcome students back for the second semester. But not everyone took a break over the holidays. We had many school system folks and community members working and volunteering to support the Arby's Classic over the holidays, and that was a big success. We enjoyed some very large crowds and many competitive teams. But we do hope that our students had great holidays. Of course, they are a happy time, but they can also be hard for some families. So I am proud of our Community Resource Center, which helped to direct the efforts and coordinate student service clubs and faculty and private donations. And some statistics that you might be interested in. We were able to provide meals for 137 families for Thanksgiving. We were able to support 167 families through the Santa Pal program and provided 120 students additional services through the John Berry Toy Drive program. So we're very tickled about that. We've got some other partnerships that we continue to collaborate with to provide opportunities for students. Currently on our website, we've highlighted 3 teachers who have received a Putting Children First Classroom grant through the Eastman Corporation, and we are looking forward to having 2 professors on site from King College at Tennessee High this semester to provide some additional dual enrollment classes for students. So we're excited about the direction we're headed in the second semester and just appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lilly. Before I ask for council comments, we've got our White Sox guys here in the audience tonight, and I didn't know if y'all wanted to take the opportunity to tell us what you've got planned for next spring, next summer.
Or, wait.
Sure. You know, you guys are here. Take the opportunity here.
Okay. Thank you very much. Unexpected pleasure.
Nothing like being put on the spot right in front of a group of people, is there?
Okay, my name is Malin Luttrell. I'm the president of the Bristol White Sox, and we're happy to say that we will have Chicago back with us another season, and this will be the last year of our current contract with them. So we hope with a lot of fans coming out this summer and give us a lot of support, we'll make sure that they come back again the following year, or if not, we will have another team. So June 19th is our first kickoff game. We'll be starting a little bit earlier this year than we did last, and just want to welcome everyone out to the ball game. Last year we had City Appreciation Night on opening night, and we plan on having that again this coming year. So we'll get some information out to everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Members of City Council, what's on your mind this evening that you want to share with our citizens?
Well, I'd like to go first. I'd like to wish our wonderful city a Happy New Year and all the citizens. 2012 is going to be a wonderful year. I'm looking forward to it, to working with the council members and our city manager and the staff. And let's make it a good one.
Thank you, Ben. Who's next?
Go ahead, I know y'all got something.
We always do.
I know.
I don't have too much. I'll just thank Dr. Lilly for, I know that your school resource center does work really hard for helping folks out, and I've said several times, and I'll say again, there are a lot of families in need in our community, unprecedented with the economy, and just for everybody, keep folks in mind. Cold nights make it tougher. Electric bills go sky high in homes that aren't always the best prepared for cold weather. So just keep that in mind, and we have a lot of resources in our community, but we also have a lot of needs. And that's all.
That's it. Joe? Michelle? Folks, I'll just take a second to say I'm always eternally optimistic. 2012, I I just think it's going to be a fine year for the city and a great year for our nation. The last report we had at our work session, our tax collections were up. The city's revenues were up. We were able to put a little bit of money back, did better than we thought. And I think with all the indicators that we see, economic indicators pointing up, I know my own home inspection business. I've been busy lately. The realtors are telling me that they've got a lot of paper on their desk that they're processing. So I'm very optimistic about 2012. If we can keep our national politicians from messing it up, I think we're just going to have a great year, and I think Bristol is going to have a tremendous year, continue to grow, and we'll see y'all here next month. Thank you very much for coming, and we're adjourned.